Okay, perfect. All right, I guess we will just go ahead and get started. So hi, my name is Dorian Philpott. I am the lead money coach at The Money Spot. I am a senior economics major in the School of Business with a political science minor. And I'm super passionate about personal finance and financial education, which led me here to The Money Spot. And I'm really excited today to be speaking with you about planning for your financial future and student loan survival. So if at any time throughout the presentation you have questions, you can either leave them in the chat or put them in the Q&A section, and I'll try to be keeping up with them as best I can on my own. But at the end of the presentation, there's a time for me to stop and answer any other questions that you might have that we don't get to in the presentation. So totally free to ask anything you'd like about student loans, about finances, about anything like that. And I will do my best to answer those questions. Okay, so if you're ready, I'll just go ahead and get started. Okay, so first we're going to talk about why do we attend college? So I know a bunch of people come into VCU for a variety of different reasons, different things that they're going after, different goals that they have for attending college. But the main three that we hear are, number one, to get a degree, right? To actually have that piece of paper signifying that you did 4 years of school and you earned another level of knowledge, I guess. Number two is to find a great job. There are a lot of studies that show that having a college degree can help you attain a better job. So that might be why some people are doing it, or depending on which job you want, a degree might actually be required for you to enter that field, right? Especially if you think about teachers, doctors. Honestly, most things these days are starting to require degrees. So it's a nice thing to have to help you get that job that you might want or to enter that career field that you're interested in. And then lastly, to make great money. As we'll see on a few slides from now, there is also a relationship between college degree attainment and money or earnings, you know. So a college degree, especially if it is helping you get that great job, might also be helping you earn great money. So those are the main three reasons that we attend college. But, you know, everyone's reasoning is a little bit different, and yours might be a combination, none of the above, and that's okay. You know, like, you have to decide why you're here at the end of the day. So that's why we attend college. So next, I just want to present some numbers to you to help kind of contextualize what we're talking about as far as student loans go. So for in-state students, tuition and fees rounds out to about $14,710. And then for out-of-state students, tuition and fees is about $36,048. So this number, I'm thinking, is looking hopefully familiar to you. If you pay attention to your student bill, right, this might be the number that it's saying that you owe. And then based on, you know, your student loans, grants, scholarships, other things, the actual amount that you owe, the balance that's due might actually be a little bit different, but this is the number that we're starting with as far as tuition and fees goes. For me, I am an out-of-state student, so that $36,000 is a pretty big one, but it's okay. I have some scholarships and stuff like that to help cover the difference, so it's not nearly as bad as it looks. But again, when we're thinking about this number, we're thinking about that in conjunction with the why we want to attend college, and it makes the number seem a little bit more realistic and a little bit more useful to us. So to move on, now we're going to talk about, is that number actually worth it to you? And like I was saying, the statistics that indicate that it might be. So this section is about unemployment and earnings, so by educational attainment. So the graph on the left actually in blue shows unemployment rates based on educational attainment, and the graph on the right is median weekly earnings based on educational attainment. So as you can see in the graph on the left in blue, The unemployment rate is highest for those who do not have a high school diploma. And I assume if you're here at VCU, you probably have at least a high school diploma. So that already brings the unemployment rate down a little bit. And as you can see, the jump between high school diploma and bachelor's degree is almost 2 full percentage points. So you can tell that there is a relationship between educational attainment and the unemployment rate. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you're potentially less likely to become unemployed. And you can even see as we go further with master's degrees, professional and doctoral degrees, the unemployment rate is even smaller. So that indicates that those people who do actually reach those educational attainment levels are less likely to be unemployed. So that's always something nice to see, and helping you see like, hey, this degree is actually worth it. This degree, this money that I'm spending every year to go to school is helping me avoid unemployment potentially. And then if you look at the graph on the right, you can see the median weekly earnings. And hopefully you can notice that, again, with no high school diploma, we're only at $553 per week. But even when you look at the difference between high school diploma and bachelor's degree, that's almost $400 difference. So that is a huge difference as far as your median weekly earnings. And another thing that I really like to point out on this graph is the jump between the associate's degree and the bachelor's degree, right? Because you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, like, okay, I just need an associate's degree. That's a degree that'll help me. But you can see that there is a difference between having an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree as far as your median weekly earnings go. And it can, again, that bachelor's degree can help you earn even that much more. And then as you can see as well, there's another jump as far as master's degrees go, and then professional and doctoral degrees. So you can see based on how much education you actually attain over your life, your median weekly earnings only go up. So that's kind of the mindset that I like to have as far as why the degree is important. Why am I even here? Maybe it's to make more money, and maybe it's to avoid being unemployed. So those are just some things to think about. Like I said, again, if you have any questions, any thoughts on what you're seeing, feel free to leave them in the chat and we can discuss them. Okay, but we will move on. So now we're going to talk about how do we actually afford college, right? Like, how do we actually make that $14,000 or $36,000? How do we actually make that work for us every single year, in addition to the cost of, housing and all of those extra expenses that we might have? So as far as the ranking of how to afford it, yes, that is grants, scholarships, savings, and working. And we can talk a little bit about why, but grants and scholarships, that's money that somebody is giving to you based on your need or based on your merit, or some other combination of those things, or, your community engagement, those types of things. And that's money that you don't actually have to pay back to anybody, right? Those scholarships and those grants, they are your money, and it can go towards your education, and no one is expecting you to pay it back later. Savings and working, kind of the same concept. As far as you don't have to pay that money back later, however much you've saved up for, however much money you worked to save, that money can just go towards that paying that tuition, and it's not money that you're going to owe later. You're paying for that upfront. So that's your best bet. I know that it can be a little bit difficult to save up $14,000 a year or $36,000 a year, or however much money your actual bill turns out to be, but that's why we have these other options available to you. So the solid option is federal student loans. And most students at VCU have some type of loan, maybe, hopefully, or not hopefully, but probably some federal student loans that they take out when they start school or take out annually. And those are a really solid option for you. And we'll talk about why as we continue through the presentation. But federal student loans, it's a pretty standardized process that they use. And you do have a grace period as far as repayment goes. and then you just pay the money to the loan servicer as you owe it. And it kind of is a pretty standardized process. So that's why it's a solid option. And it's a very, very common option for students. And then we talk about buyers beware, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit more as we go on. But those are private loans, home equity loans, and credit cards. Those are things that, as best you can, you want to avoid them altogether. But if you can't avoid them, you really want to make sure that you are aware of what you are signing with those products. Okay, and then we continue on. So, like I said, as far as like loan options go, after that best bet of grants and scholarships and all those types of things is federal student loans. So there are 3 types of federal student loans that we'll get into on the next few slides, but those are direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, and direct plus loans. And the difference is basically just who can take them out and how the interest is accruing. And then, like I mentioned, the other options as far as loans go are private loans. So those might be, you might be familiar with personal loans. A lot of times those are advertised through like banks and stuff. So you might be getting emails about those types of things or seeing ads online about taking out a personal loan. There's also home equity loans, which usually apply to people who have a house, and you take out money, or you list your house as collateral for that loan that you're receiving. So that means that if you don't pay your loan back, your house could potentially be taken from you as collateral for not paying your loan. And then lastly, we have credit cards. Credit cards traditionally have super high interest rates, and they can negatively impact your credit if you are taking out these loan amounts and not paying them back right away. So that's why we say that we want to be aware of those. But those, I'm just listing all of your options for you. But again, the direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, and direct plus loans are very, very common, and many VCU students actually have those. Okay. So like I was saying with federal loans and then the differences between them. So if you're familiar, direct subsidized loans are need-based. So that means that you must fill out the FAFSA in order to every single year in order to qualify for those direct subsidized loans. And it just means that if you receive them, it means that while you are in school, no interest is accruing on those loans because the federal government is paying for that interest for you. And it also it means that the amount that you borrow cannot actually exceed your financial need, which is why you have to fill out your FAFSA in order to receive direct subsidized loans. So they analyze your FAFSA information, they figure out what your financial need is, and they give you an amount of money based on your demonstrated financial need. So you can't borrow any more than that from the direct subsidized loan. And then if you still need to borrow more money, that does technically exceed your financial need, the next things that you might want to be considering are the direct unsubsidized loans and then direct plus loans. So direct unsubsidized loans are a little bit different because, excuse me, the interest begins to accrue immediately. So as soon as you sign for those loans, the interest will start to accrue. While you do not have to be paying that interest immediately, it will be accruing in the background. So you will see your loan balance continue to increase over the life of the loan while you're not making payments on it because of that interest that's accruing the entire time you're in school. And the other thing to keep in mind with direct unsubsidized loans is you don't need to demonstrate your financial need. You still have to fill out the FAFSA in order to qualify for direct unsubsidized loans, but they're not thoroughly analyzing they're not analyzing as thoroughly your financial need and the amount of money that you can actually borrow. So those are those two types, and those are fairly common. And I would say most people are at least somewhat familiar with them. And then the other type of loans are, our federal loans are direct plus loans. So those are traditionally the loans that graduate students or parents of undergraduates might be taking out on your behalf. So those types of loans are very similar to the direct unsubsidized loan in the sense that the interest will be accruing immediately, but it is important to recognize that the maximum amount of money that can be taken out for direct plus loans is the cost of attendance. So, you know, if you're thinking, hey, I also need to be thinking about some additional expenses that I might need to pay for with loans, direct plus loans might not be able to cover all of those things. So those are all things that you want to consider as far as federal loans go, and those are the different 3 types that you will see. So as we move on, then we talk about, why do loans have such a bad reputation? So I know for me, working at the Money Spot and speaking with a lot of students, a lot of people are actually really scared of student loans and concerned about them and constantly thinking to pay this money back. And I always am like curious as to hear like why they have this negative association with student loans, but we've come to decide that it's these 2 main reasons why people have such a bad why student loans have a bad reputation and why people have such a negative association with them. So number 1 is over borrowing. So when you go to fill out the FAFSA every year, it gives you a loan approval amount, right? So that's the total amount that you can take out in student loans. But a lot of times that's actually more than you might need in order to pay for school, because it might, you know, be factoring in your total financial need versus, and not necessarily the cost of whatever school you attend. It might not be factoring in your course load or what other things you might have going on. So that's why it is so important as a student to be cautious about how much money you actually need and how much money you're taking out. So make sure that you're calculating the amount of money that you actually want to accept for your student loans every year or every semester. So that means that you might need to take a little extra time, make a Money Spot appointment, come in and talk with us about like budgeting and cash flow management to understand like, hey, like how much money do I actually need to live every semester? Like how much money should I be taking out in student loans? Like what can I actually pay for? So then you can avoid the overborrowing, which means that you will have more money than you actually needed to pay back an interest and to pay back interest on that money as well later. And the other reason why student loans have such a bad reputation is because of private loans. Like I mentioned, they are known for having high interest rates, significantly higher than federal loans because they're not regulated the same way. And they can often have predatory lending practices that you should be watching out for. So that means that while your federal loans, you have like a 6-month grace period where you don't need to be making loan payments, your private loans might not have that. And you might actually need to start making loan payments as soon as you start school or as soon as you take out the loan. So it's always really important that if you are going to take out private loans to make sure that you thoroughly read the contracts and you really understand what you are signing up for, especially when you consider things like home equity loans, where your assets like a house are seen as collateral that you can lose if you don't pay back what you owe. So hopefully by talking about these things and giving you this information, it can hopefully change loans as like their reputation and make you a little bit more aware of maybe what to avoid and what to be thinking about and having like good borrowing practices. But that's why we're kind of talking about this. So like I said, it's really important before you accept your loans every single semester or every year to check what loans you've already taken out. Like you always want to be reassessing, hey, how much money have I already borrowed for school? How much more money do I think I'm going to need? is this amount right? Is this amount like the same as I felt like I needed last semester? To make sure that you're kind of keeping up with that and not over borrowing. And it's super, super helpful to use a repayment estimator to help understand what those loans might look like for you. If you have federal loans, and we'll kind of talk about further into the presentation, but the student aid website, the same one that you would use to fill out the FAFSA, actually has a really great student loan repayment estimator, and you can simulate what it's like to borrow more money. So maybe if you are only 2 years into college and you still might have like another 2+ years to go, you can simulate what it would be like for you to borrow that additional 2 years worth of money for college. Or you can see like, hey, I'm about to graduate with my bachelor's degree, and I know that I want to go for a master's degree or some professional degree. Like, what will that cost? What is the additional cost for those additional degrees? And you can really start to understand what that additional loan acceptance might be like for you. And I really think that that just helps kind of set the tone for your student loans and really help to make sure that you are comfortable with the amount of money that you are taking out. Because at the end of the day, it is money that you will pay back. So you should really, really, really be comfortable with what you're taking out. So now we'll talk about repayment options and how to actually survive student loans and what to be thinking about. So with federal direct loans, that's kind of the repayment process that we'll be talking about most, because private loans, the repayment process is very specific to that loan servicer. But for federal loans, there are 8 different repayment options available to you that you can pick from at any time during your loan repayment process. So like I said, traditionally students will start to repay their student loans back 6 months after they graduate. It's been a little bit different like during COVID, during the pandemic, because there was like a freeze on student loans. So nobody was required to make any payments, but that freeze is ending on January 31st of 2022. So come February 1st, people will be asked to start making payments again. So that's why we're kind of talking about the repayment process. It might be a little bit far away from you. It might be close, so just something to keep in mind. So like I said, there's 8 different repayment strategies currently, but they might be adding more in the near future. So the first, and this is like the default plan, is the standard plan. And that's basically where you have a fixed monthly payment and you pay that monthly payment for 10 years. That is the plan that everyone starts out on, but at any time you can change to one of the other 7 plans available to you. But the standard plan is where everybody starts. Other plans include the graduated repayment, which is where every 2 years, your loan payment increases by a certain amount of money. So I guess it's kind of under the premise that the further you are away from school, potentially your earning potential might be increasing, your salary might change, maybe we'll have more money to put towards your student loans, just kind of depending on your situation, but that's what the graduated repayment plan kind of assumes. And that also is over 10 years traditionally. Then there's the extended plan, and that one is actually over 25 years, I believe, instead of the traditional 10. Draws out your monthly payments draws out your repayment process. And so that means that your monthly payments might be significantly smaller, but it also could mean that you owe more money over the life of your loan because the interest is continuing to accrue over the life of the loan during that 25-year period. And then the last 2 sections are income-based and pay-as-you-earn. So for pay-as-you-earn, that's the 4th section, and that kind of caps your monthly payments at 10% of your income. So that repayment strategy tries to make sure that you are comfortably able to make those monthly payments, because they are kind of working under the financial expectation that it's 10% of your income. And then lastly, the income-based plan. So that's where you need to report your income annually to your loan servicer, and they will kind of like help you come up with, or they will help come up with a specific payment amount that kind of fits into your income and the changes, the fluctuations that your income might go through. Do you have any questions about repayment strategies? Okay. So in order to kind of understand which repayment plan makes the most sense for you, like I said, you want to be using the repayment estimator at the studentloans.gov website, or you can go to the studentaid.gov website, and then under the managing loans tab, there is a section that says repayment estimator. And if you just click that and you either log in with your FAFSA information, or you kind of start from scratch and work through the questions that it prompts you, it will present to you based on the information that you fill out, what the repayment options would look like for you, and actually what it can estimate what your monthly payment might be, how many years it would take for you to pay off that student loan, the total interest that you would pay, all of that type of information, and it'll populate it for all 8 plans. So you really have the opportunity to compare the plans that make the most sense for you and kind of figure out what would work for you. And like I said, you can also simulate borrowing more money, or maybe a few years down the line after you've started repaying, you're like, hey, this isn't working for me anymore, or I'm having a hard time making my student loan payments. They can also like help you go through the repayment, the estimator, to kind of figure out, hey, what changes do I need to make in order to make sure that I can pay my loan? If you have more questions about the repayment estimator, it might be useful to make a Money Spot appointment where a coach can literally walk you through that process, or potentially your financial counselor from the Student Financial Management Center might also be able to help you walk through that process and talk a little bit more about repayment from the kind of perspective while you're in school. Okay, so then a lot of people want to talk about, okay, like I know that, you know, traditionally you have 10 years to repay your loans, but I don't want to spend 10 years repaying my loans. How can I repay them faster? So like I said, with the pay as you earn plan, it's kind of capped at 10% of your income or your monthly income, because that's what experts say should kind of be your student loan payment threshold. You don't want your student loan payments every month to exceed 10% of your income or your earnings. So that means that, okay, like if your monthly payment is less than 10%, maybe you want to be paying a little bit more, so you reach that 10% threshold and you're paying as much as is feasibly comfortable for you in order to pay down your loan a little bit faster. You also might want to think, again, like I said, about the repayment plans. The standard plan saves the most interest typically, but like I said, the income driven and income based plans might have lower monthly payments. So those are, again, things that you want to weigh for yourself. And something that I really like about the student loan repayment estimator is that it asks you the question, like, what is your repayment goal, right? Do you want to pay down your loan as fast as you possibly can? Do you want monthly payments that you can afford? Are you not really worried about your student loan payments? Like, and you can kind of tell it, hey, this is why, this is what I'm thinking. When I'm thinking about repaying my loans, this is what I'm concerned about. And it can help identify the plan that best fits into your repayment goal. And it'll even give you the pros and cons for each repayment plan. So you can kind of see, like, the certain plans are good for certain things and others are good for other things, and can really give you all of the information to help you make an informed decision for yourself. Then you want to think about, if you are still wanting to repay your loans faster, you might want to think about extra payments. So one way to think about how much extra money to be paying is you can divide your monthly payment by 12, and then pay that much extra on top of your monthly payment each month. And this will save you time and interest, right? Because if you think about it, if you're paying a little bit more every single month, then the interest would be accruing on less money over time, and you would be paying down your loan significantly faster by making some additional payments. And even on the repayment estimator, there is like a little button at the bottom that says simulate paying more or something like that. It's a blue button that you would see if you scroll down a little bit once you've done the full estimator, and it's showing you the different repayment options. And you can click on it and say, okay, this is the monthly payment, but I want to simulate paying an additional X amount of money every month, or I want to make an additional one-time payment. So then you can see like the difference in your repayment based on paying additional money, like how much that would change the overall interest that you owe, how much it would change the overall loan balance, how much it would change the time that it would take you to repay that loan. And that can really help you make those decisions, like how much time or money am I going to save by paying an extra $10 or $20 or however much money every single month. So that can really help with repaying your loans faster. And lastly, starting early can actually really help you pay down your loans a lot faster, because especially if you have unsubsidized loans, or you're in that grace period still with your subsidized loans, if you start making payments before your grace period ends, you're actually starting to like pay down that interest that's accruing. And that can really, really help make your future loan payments a lot smaller by starting earlier. So again, that depends on if you have the financial means to start paying before the grace period ends. That means that you again need to be on top of how much money you owe and what your financial situation outside of your student loans look like. But it is definitely a possibility. Some students do choose to make payments while they're in school to help pay down some of the interest, to kind of save them a little bit money later. But again, it's up to you and up to what would help you feel most comfortable with repaying your loan. Because like I said, everybody's repayment strategy is a little bit different. Okay, we're almost done now. But like, I just wanted to plug the FAFSA application and make sure that you know about all the important dates. So the FAFSA opened on October 1st this year. So if you haven't gotten a chance to fill that out already, I would highly recommend that you get on that as soon as you possibly can, because VCU's priority filing date is February 1st. So you want to be filling out your application before February 1st, because it gives you a better chance for that grant money that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. So that means that you might be eligible for some additional money that is not a student, would not be a loan. So it wouldn't be money that you would have to pay back later, but those grants are kind of on a first come, first serve basis. So you want to be filing as quickly as you can. And also by filing early, it gives you more time to think about additional sources of funding. I know that sometimes from year to year, your student aid package might change. So if it does change, it'll give you a little bit more time to be looking for additional scholarship money or making other arrangements to make sure that you are actually able to cover the full cost of attendance at VCU. And it's also super important that you go ahead and start filling out the FAFSA information again, is because potentially during the pandemic, some part of your financial situation might have changed, and it is a good opportunity to report those changes and see how it reflects on your family contribution or your need status, right? So you want to make sure that you are giving yourself the best opportunity, the best foot forward as far as your financial aid situation goes. So fill out the FAFSA as soon as you possibly can if you have not already. And if you have questions about how to fill out the FAFSA or you're having trouble, I would say going to the Student Financial Management Center and speaking with your financial counselor or going to their drop-in hours would really, really help because they know a little bit more about FAFSA than I do, since I kind of am just helping on the repaying side of student loans. Those are the people who are the experts at FAFSA and helping you get the most money that you can while you're still here. But again, make sure you know your resources and make sure you are getting to fill out the FAFSA as soon as you possibly can. Okay, and here is a really good place to stop and ask questions. So let me know if you have any things that you wanted me to talk about that I didn't, or different student loan questions that I can answer for you. I'll also take this time to say, like, I know that I mentioned that the student loan freeze is ending on January 31st of 2022. So that means that while the interest rates were at zero for a lot of the pandemic, now the interest rates will be going back to whatever they were prior to. So now is a good time to be, again, just checking your loan status and making sure that you're paying attention to what that might mean for you. Let's see. The VCU business is not the channel we will be posting it to in a few weeks. The Money Spot actually has its own YouTube channel that we'll be posting this information or this recording to. So like I said, if you email the Money Spot at vcu.edu, we'll be able to tell you exactly what that channel name is, or even just send you a link to it once it's up and ready to go. And that's actually where we post all of our recordings from all of our presentations that we've done this semester and in previous semesters. So at any point in time, you can go back and see what kind of information we've been talking about, sharing with students. And if you have more questions about like what the student loans like unfreezing kind of means for you, I have a link to a really good like website that kind of gives a little bit more information about it and talks about like some frequently asked questions that students or former students around the country have asked to kind of cover the gaps and make sure that everybody's on the same page. But if there's no more questions, I will go ahead and close out the presentation. So if there was something that I talked about today that you have more questions about, or you want to hear more about, whether it's student loan repayment or thinking maybe about your cash flow or setting savings goals, or even talking about your student loan repayment goals or credit, or a variety of other topics, I would highly recommend contacting the Money Spot. So this semester, we've been doing some combination of virtual and in-person appointments. Our hours will be closing for the semester in like 2 weeks. So if you have questions before and want to set up an appointment before the end of the semester, I would go ahead and get on the schedule for that. And you can go to themoneyspot.vcu.edu to kind of see more about what our office does and how to set up an appointment. But we do set up our appointments through Navigate, similar to how you would for an advisor or for your financial counselor or anyone else that you might need to meet with. Like I said, if you have questions, you can email us at themoneyspot@vcu.edu. And then also you can follow us on Instagram at themoneyspot. That's where we're posting updates from for our presentations, as well as different events that we have going on throughout the semester. Like we do a lot of tabling in Sneed Hall and then outside across campus. So you'll be able to see kind of where we are and when we're going to be there on Instagram as well. So with that being said, I will stop sharing my screen. And I will stay on for like another few minutes to answer any questions that you might have. But other than that, thank you so much for attending this presentation. Thank you for your engagement. I really appreciate it. And thanks for kind of watching me pilot running a webinar by myself. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. And I wish you a great rest of the semester. I hope you end strong. Sorry, there's motorcycles outside of my building.